Heavenly messenger sent by God delivers a shocking gospel message. Few knew what truly happened that night. The stars flickered in the dark sky, but there was something more. Something electrifying. A glowing figure appeared, its wings unfurling like ancient scrolls. The air crackled with energy, a palpable tension enveloping the hills of Bethlehem. Rumors whispered through the land. The shepherds watched, breaths hitching in surprise. Was this a vision? A nightmare? Or something divine? As the messenger descended, the world below held its breath. The night cloaked the fields, shadows dancing under the radiant light. Sheep rested, unaware of the extraordinary event unfolding. But the shepherds, rough and hardened by life, felt a mix of fear and wonder. This figure, bright and imposing, was not just an angel, it carried a message that could shake the very foundations of hope. This was a time of turmoil. Rome's grip tightened around Judea, the streets echoed with fear. People longed for something, anything, that would break their chains. They draped their dreams upon the heavens and prayed for deliverance. And here it was, poised to arrive in the most unexpected of ways. But what good could come from a child born in a stable? The old prophecies hinted at a king, yet the whisper of the crowd was skeptical. Could the world really change? Tension mounted as the messenger's voice boomed like rolling thunder. Fear not. It declared, words cascading through the air, wrapping around each listener like a woolen cloak. The promise of joy, peace, and salvation spilled out, yet doubts lingered. Eyes darted nervously, hearts raced who would listen to this haunting proclamation. As shimmering halos danced around the angel's head, the stark reality clawed at them, faith was a fragile thing. They murmured among themselves. What if they got it wrong? Did it really happen? The air thickened with their uncertainty. Each word from the heavenly visitor held the potential to ignite hope or crush it underfoot. The tension was electric, palpable enough to feel. Would they risk everything to follow a star leading to a child wrapped in swaddling clothes, or would they cower beneath the weight of doubt? As the light began to fade and the figment of the angel started to retreat, the hearts of observers raced. Would they act? Would they stand up against the tide of fear dragging them down? Only one question hung in the air, heavy and unyielding: who would take the first step into the unknown? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The minutes stretched like the shadows beneath the trees as the shepherds exchanged glances weighed with the gravity of their choice. Each face reflected a flicker of uncertainty mingled with a burgeoning spark of hope. They were tethered to their fields, their flocks, yet the image of the angel lingered, pressing upon them like the weight of unfulfilled dreams. Let us go to Bethlehem, one finally spoke, breaking the spell of silence. His voice was low, edged with a courage that surprised even himself. It was not just an invitation, it was a declaration, a step toward faith. In that moment, a shift occurred. The others nodded, their resolve kindling like a flame in the still night. They gathered their few belongings, leaving their sheep to the safety of the darkness under the watchful gaze of the stars. It was an improbable adventure. Who were they, mere shepherds, to seek out a king? Yet, deep down, they felt the tug of destiny, the pull of the divine calling them forth. As they walked through the fields, the air buzzed with an unquenchable energy. The earth was alive, infused with the magic of the moment. The hills loomed around them, shadows cast by the glowing promise of the star. It was brighter than they had ever seen, guiding them like a beacon of hope. Was it truly leading them to the fulfillment of their wildest prayers, or was it a mere trick of the mind? They arrived at the village, where sounds of distant laughter and murmuring filled the air. People swarmed around, caught in their own worries and joys. The stable lay at the edge of town, a humble structure, unadorned yet pregnant with the weight of prophecy. The shepherds hesitated at its entrance, heartbeats echoing in their ears. All their lives had taught them to seek certainty, yet here, they were called to embrace the unknown. Inside was a scene that could have shattered their preconceptions. A manger cradling a newborn, surrounded by his mother's gentle sighs and a father's proud, quiet watch. The air softened, carrying a scent of hay and humble beginnings. With cautious steps, they moved closer. The child lay there, small and fragile, seemingly ordinary yet radiating a warmth that wrapped around them like a tender embrace. In his tiny form, they glimpsed the magnitude of hope, fusing past prophecies with future promise. Suddenly, the doubts that had clouded their hearts began to lift, replaced by an overwhelming sense of awe. One shepherd knelt, then another followed, until all were gathered around the manger. Their faces, weathered by toil, brightened in the glow of this miraculous dawn. Could this truly be him? One whispered, staring wide-eyed at the babe. The one foretold? In that sacred space, as they beheld the child, they felt an urgency bubbling within them, the need to share this news with the world that had long awaited redemption. The term Messiah lay heavy in the air, as they sensed the weight of their responsibility pressing upon them. As they marveled, their hearts stirred with questions of deeper significance. What kind of kingdom had begun this night? What stories would echo from this child as he grew? And most importantly, what would they tell others when they returned to their fields, still steeped in the mundanity of life yet forever changed by this moment? What changes might this child bring into a world so mired in despair, and would those in the shadows heed the call to look again toward the light? Amidst the swirling thoughts and hushed reverence, the shepherds remained transfixed by the sight of the child, who stirred slightly in his sleep, his small hand curling into a gentle fist. The profound stillness was broken by the soft cooing of Mary, who glanced up at them, her eyes reflecting a depth of love that seemed to spill over the edges of her very being. "Fear not," she spoke softly, her voice a balm to their anxious souls. "You have come as all the earth will one day come to bear witness. This child carries the hope that your hearts long for." Each shepherd felt as though she spoke directly to him, unraveling layers of doubt and grief they had carried like burdens upon their backs. "It is not only to Israel that his light shall shine," Joseph interjected, his rugged face etched with a mixture of pride and humility. "He is for all nations, for every lost and wandering heart." The shepherds exchanged looks of disbelief, their hearts racing at the notion. Could it be true that this simple child held the fate of all humanity within his fragile frame? Compelled by the weight of the moment, they leaned closer, drawn in by an invisible thread that pulled them not only toward the child but toward a new understanding of their place in the world. The days of monotony in the fields, of watching over sheep, suddenly felt colored by the revelation they were experiencing. The meanest life could hold the grandest truths. The shepherds took turns touching the child's soft cheek, feeling a warmth that was both comforting and exhilarating. In that stillness, they became acutely aware of the contrast that lay before them. These common men stood in the presence of the extraordinary. It dawned on them, an unspoken understanding shared among the group. They were not here merely as curious onlookers, they were invited participants in a story far greater than themselves. As they stood quietly, the luminous star outside pulsed with vibrancy, as if it too felt the gravity of this moment. The air was filled with unarticulated questions, the kind that needed to be pondered rather than spoken. What was their role in this unfolding story? Were they to be heralds of the good news? They felt the weight of the world upon their shoulders, tasked to bear tidings that could shift the very foundations of human thought and belief. Suddenly, the thought emerged, unbidden but powerful: what if they returned home and were met with doubt, even ridicule? Would their families dismiss the significance of their experience? After all, they were mere shepherds, tasked with guarding their flocks. Could their simple voices transmit the grandeur of what they witnessed that night? Mary seemed to sense their turmoil. "You may feel small, but even the least among you is woven into his purpose. Speak boldly of your truth. You have been chosen to carry the story until it spreads like wildflowers in a field." Her words clung to them, igniting a fire in their hearts. They had been called forth from the quietude of their lives to witness the miracle firsthand. The emperor's decree and the whole city's chaos faded into the background. Now, as they gazed upon the child, thoughts filled their minds. They were called to be the first messengers, to proclaim hope from the edges of their fields to the corners of the world. As they left the stable, each step seemed both heavy and light, burdened by a message far greater than they imagined possible, yet buoyed by the certainty that they would share it. The night sky watched over them, and they felt the weight of heaven's glory trailing behind like the dust of their sandals, and as they trudged back into the stillness of the fields, their eyes strained against the soft glow of the star, their hearts brimmed with a question that threatened to reshape their lives: how could they, who had once been mere watchers in the night, now be transformed into heralds of a world-altering truth? What challenges, joys, and heartaches would follow as they embraced this new calling? As the shepherds ventured back into the fields, the weight of anticipation hung in the air like the mist rising from the earth. They walked in a huddle, buoyed by an unspoken agreement forged in the glow of the miraculous night. Each of their hearts beat in time with the brilliance of the star that had guided them. Yet, amid their joy fluttered a persistent fear: who would believe them when they returned home? At the edge of their familiar pasture, the landscape stretched wide, illuminated by the nascent dawn. A thin veil of fog rolled in, softening the contours of the hills and the outlines of their sheep. As they approached their flock, still lulled by the night's tranquility, one shepherd, Nathanael, paused. "What if we tell them and they laugh? They will call us madmen, dreamers lost in the reverie of sleep." The other shepherds turned to him, and the weight of his words settled heavily upon them. "Perhaps we are mad," Joshua replied, his mind racing with visions of the child. "Yet, if what we have seen is true, can we risk silence? Can we let fear steal away our purpose?" Caleb, who had been reciting Mary's words to himself, stirred with a burning conviction. "It is not our truth alone to bear. This child, he is the truth, the promise made in whispers of old. We are but vessels. If even one heart is moved by our tale, is it not worth the chance?" The fire in his voice ignited understanding, and doubt began to melt away like morning dew under the sun. In their eyes emerged clarity. Each shepherd had been touched, not only by the miraculous sight of the baby but by the stirring of the Spirit within them. Perhaps they were the first messengers, but they would not be the last. Their voices could mingle with countless others, each one echoing across time and space to form a chorus of hope. With newfound resolve, they approached their flock, the sheep stirring at their presence, sensing the change in their shepherds. They gathered the animals close, a picture of home and responsibility, yet their hearts pulsed with the promise of distant horizons and swaddled dreams. As Nathanael began to speak, his voice tremored. "Last night, in a humble stable, we met our Savior. He was wrapped in swaddling clothes, and a star shone above him, a sign that hope has arrived for us all." The words flowed, uninhibited by the fear that had once gripped him. Each shepherd took their turn, weaving the extraordinary fabric of their encounter into stories that danced like flames before their audience. The sheep listened with steadfast eyes, but the true challenge loomed beyond the fields, waiting for them in the hearts of their families and townsfolk. What would the village elders say? Would the people dismiss their experience as mere folly or embrace the mystery that had unfolded before them? As dawn broke over the horizon, casting golden light on their path, the shepherds made their way toward the village. In their hearts swirled anticipation and trepidation. Their minds replayed the moment of revelation, the warmth of the child, the tender embrace of love from Mary, the uncontainable promise echoed in Joseph's voice. As they walked, they noticed villagers stirring from their homes, rubbing sleep from their eyes, unaware of the monumental secret that had just been birthed in their midst. The shepherds faltered, glancing at one another, silent questions dancing between them. "Are we really ready for this?" Caleb whispered, barely breaking the morning stillness. "Ready or not, we must speak," Joshua urged, though his own heart beat rapidly against the uncertainty that lay ahead. As their feet took them closer to the village square, the murmurs of mourning began to swell, and they felt the weight of expectation gathering. They stood at the precipice of change, poised to bridge the gap between the sacred and the ordinary, but amid their shared determination, a deeper question lingered in the air. Was it only the miracle of the child that would galvanize the hearts of men, or was there a greater mystery yet to be revealed through their humble testimonies? What if, instead of a single Savior, they were called to unveil a chorus of redemption, one that pulsed within each life touched by the light of that star? As the shepherds stepped into the sunlit village, a blend of hope and trepidation swirled around them like the aromas of morning bread wafting from the modest homes. The cobblestone paths felt uneven beneath their feet, mirroring the tumultuous emotions brewing in their hearts. They had borne witness to the extraordinary. Now, they stood on the threshold of sharing that wonder with a world that thrived on routine. The village square, typically a place of bustling trade and quiet gossip, was eerily calm, each window peering down like an eye scrutinizing the arrival of the unexpected. Children lingered nearby, their innocence a stark contrast to the shepherds' newfound wisdom. The villagers were beginning to gather, drawn not by the tale of enlightenment but by the stirrings of the morninga, sound as familiar as it was foreboding. "Speak not just of what you have seen," an elderly man named Elias called out, his voice a mixture of authority and curiosity. He leaned on his staff, his beard catching the early rays of sunlight. "What brings you to us this day with such fervor in your eyes?" Nathanael stepped forward, emboldened by the fire kindled in his heart. "Elias, wise elder, we have seen the light of the world." His voice rang out, momentarily silencing the murmurs of disbelief. "In the stillness of night, we beheld a child, cradled in humble surroundings, and angels spoke of peace and goodwill." The villagers exchanged glances, skepticism weaving through them like thread in a tapestry. Whispers fluttered from one person to another as Nathanael continued, detailing the star that had guided them, over fields and valleys, to the newborn Savior. Yet doubt hung heavy in the air, obscuring the sunny optimism of his words. "Angels, you say?" Another villager interjected, a watchful mother cradling her babe. "Surely, you were dreaming, entranced by the moonlight. What warrant have you to proclaim such wonders among us?" Caleb felt a pang of despair. "We carry no warrants, only the truth of what we have encountered. It is not mere dream, it is life, the promise of our hopes revealed before our eyes." He turned his gaze from the crowd and caught sight of Mary's gentle face in his mind, the way she cradled her child, her strength echoing the power of what was to come. With that vision, his conviction solidified, as if each heartbeat was a drumbeat urging him on. "Yet who will listen?" Joshua asked, his brow furrowed with concern. "Is there not danger in declaring the unbelievable? What if they shun us? What if the angel's message remains unheard?" Elias nodded, a solemn expression creasing his brow. "To speak the truth is to invite scrutiny and challenge. But it is also to pierce the veil of shadow that hangs so heavily. If we are to touch the divine, we must be willing to weather the storms of doubt." A hush fell over the gathering, each villager weighing the shepherd's words against their understanding of the world. They began to shift, uncertainty blooming into curiosity. The shepherds' faces were etched with sincerity, the weight of their experience palpable in the morning air. Caleb looked at his companions, a question bubbling to the surface. What if our story is a starting point? What if we unlock not just faith in a child, but faith in each other and in our ability to believe in what we cannot see? Nathanael took a step forward, his eyes sharp with urgency. "Then we have done what we came to do, not merely to witness but to ignite a flame of hope. What if we are called to share our doubt as well as our belief? To allow our struggle to be woven into the narrative of this new beginning?" As conversations rippled through the crowd, the faintest glimmer of desire to believe kindled within weary hearts. Faces once hardened by the weight of daily existence began to soften, reflecting the glint of possibility and wonder. What if their lives could change? What if hope was indeed possible? But even as the words flourished among them, a deeper thought emerged in the minds of the shepherds. Was the risk of sharing their truth merely a prelude to a greater mystery? Was the child's birth a solitary event, or was it a call for all to awaken to something beyond their own understanding? In a moment of shared silence, the question hung, lingering in the air: could belief itself become a unifying force, drawing everyone closer to the divine? And what might unfold from that when the world began to listen? As the murmurings of the villagers grew, a tension wound through the square, thick and palpable. The rhythm of normalcy lay disturbingly disrupted, and the air was charged with possibilities tugging at the edges of the mind. The shepherds exchanged glances, aware that the very act of speaking had released a tide of inquiry that could not be easily contained. Elias raised his hand, once again commanding attention. If this is indeed a revelation, then let us gather at the heart of it. Let the child's light be the topic of our discourse. Bring forth the one who has perceived this transformation. His word struck a chord, and though some hesitated, the curiosity was too strong to resist. A few people began to stir among the crowd, beckoned forth by the beckoning of both leader and faith. As they held their children close, looking to the shepherds for insight, a young girl broke free from her mother's protective grasp, her small feet pattering bravely on the cobblestones. "Tell me more about the stars," she called, her voice bright, cutting through the lingering shadows of doubt like a ray of sunshine. Eyes gleamed with memories of generations pieced from stories of constellations and celestial wonders. "Did you really see angels?" Caleb felt himself soften, the innocence of her question melting away the weight of their own trepidation. "Yes, little one," he replied earnestly. "We saw a light that was not just in the sky but also in our hearts. The angels spoke of joy for all people. If you look to the stars, they are the same ones that sing truth. They awaken us to what lies hidden, the beauty of divine love among us." The villagers leaned in closer, as if the tenderness of that simple shared moment was an invitation to step toward the uncharted. "Yet how do we know this child is the promised one?" Elias pressed, his voice a careful balance of authority and yearning. "In what way does this child fulfill the hopes we have held for generations?" A shiver of uncertainty passed over Caleb, yet a revelation stirred deep within him. "It is not solely in the act of his birth but in how we choose to embrace what we cannot fully comprehend. Isn't it in the raising of the humble and the laying aside of our pride that we begin to see the purpose unfold?" Joshua spoke up, his sage-like nature unveiling a deeper inquiry. "But what of the risk involved? If this child carries the weight of prophecy, what comes of those who resist or reject such a wondrous gift? Will we stand prepared for the descent that might seek to dismantle this sacred revelation?" A hush fell over the group once again, and their eyes flickered from the shepherds to one another, trapped in the gravity of a question that would not easily find resolution. The weight of the moment pushed them to reckon with the implications of such a miraculous event. What if, among them, lay not only the promise of light but also the specter of heartache? What if the very act of belief would ask them to carry burdens unseen, brave trials, and confront their deepest fears? "Then let us also acknowledge our troubling thoughts," Nathanael suggested, his tone earnest as the sun began its climb in the sky, casting elongated shadows that danced around their feet. "We must speak of the wrestling of souls, the challenge of faith. For every seed of hope sown may require a tilling of pain and doubt." A silence enveloped the gathering once more, pregnant with both promise and peril. The fields of their hearts were prepared for planting, but in the act of sowing, what would emerge? At that moment, the shepherds understood that their journey was not merely about sharing a wondrous tale, it was a call to embrace the full spectrum of their collective human experience. As the light grew brighter, so did the apprehension nestled in the depths of their souls, and so, the question lingered among them, unresolved yet electric. In the pursuit of belief, would they be ready to navigate the shadows that might accompany the light? What stories would the unfolding journey reveal about their faith and their humanity? As the words of Caleb and the murmurs of the villagers mingled with the morning breeze, the clouds in the sky began to shift, parting just enough to filter down a soft golden light. It painted the cobblestones with an ethereal glow, drawing their gaze upward. They stood in a circle, at once captivated and contemplative, waiting for the anticipated miracle that seemed to shine from beyond their earthly confines. The tremor of their collective thoughts held them in that moment, suspended between skepticism and belief. Yet as the rays fell upon the earth, a distant sound broke the stillness, like heralds from another realm, a chorus of serene voices, echoing through the valleys. "What is that?" a woman whispered, eyes widening in astonishment. Others turned their heads, their hearts quickening with expectation, for something ancient and significant stirred within them. It is as if the heavens themselves are responding, Elias said, mesmerized. As he gestured for them to listen more closely, the melody wove through the crowd, rich and harmonious, growing louder yet remaining gentle. It carried with it words of peace, a reminder of love poured out like a balm over their troubled souls. Each note struck chords deep within, awakening memories of the sacred promises passed down from generation to generation. Do you hear them? Caleb breathed, feeling the air vibrate with possibility. They speak of a future bathed in shalom, not just for us but for all the lost and weary. Gathering courage, the little girl raised her voice, triumphant yet innocent. Will the child bring peace? Her question hung in the air, drawing all focus to the shepherds, who found themselves grappling once more with the latent power of such an idea. Caleb looked to the others. That is the very essence of this message. The child's birth signals a new dawn, where the brokenness we feel can transform into wholeness, if only we have the fortitude to believe. His heart surged as he spoke. Just as the angels proclaimed, it is a promise not limited to one but reaching out to every heart seeking comfort, yet the shadows of uncertainty began creeping back into their thoughts. But does not peace come at a cost? Nathanael questioned, a shadow passing over his brow. Will we not have to lay down our swords and face our demons? Does the coming of this child mean that our faith will demand more from us than we are willing to give? Caleb nodded, understanding the weight of his brother's concerns. Yes, and perhaps therein lies the greater struggle. The path of faith is woven with love yet stitched with challenges and trials we must encounter. He glanced at the village gathered around him, sensing the flicker of fear and hope mingling in their hearts. A stocky man in the crowd raised his voice, why must we be tested at all? Is there not beauty in the ordinary, away from the brightness of miracles? Must we seek the light when darkness offers us familiarity? Murmurs rose, echoing both apprehension and longing, the villagers caught in the tension between the two worlds. The sun continued to rise, illuminating their faces, each one telling a story of struggle and triumph, fear and hope. Elias took a step forward, grounding them with his wisdom. It is true, the familiar can be a comfort. Yet consider this: what if the greatest miracles lie not only in how brightly the stars shine, but in how we reflect that divine light to one another? He gestured broadly to encompass the villagers. What if our daily acts of kindness carry the weight of a deeper purpose, shaping a world that mirrors the love we are called to embrace? Silence followed, except for the soft rustling leaves. Each heart wrestled with the invitation to not only believe but to act. Would the burden of their doubts lead them to shed the scales from their eyes and truly see? The choir of voices in the distance began to recede, but Caleb felt their presence lingering, suffused with palpable energy. Awake, dear ones. Let us be the hands that carry this peace into the chaos of our lives. Let us be vessels for the light, however dimly we might burn. The villagers exchanged glances, contemplative and questioning, each grappling with the challenge of embodying that light in the shadows they both feared and understood so well. As the sun ascended higher, casting warmth over their gathering, a new thought streamed through the air, unchained yet formidable. In this shared moment of clarity, would their hearts align to embrace the transformative peace that the child would bring, despite the burdens it may demand? What if their greatest trial was not the dark moments of journeying but the courage to move forward in faith, even when the road ahead remained obscured? As the sun continued its slow ascent, a hush fell over the villagers, their thoughts coalescing around the promise of the child, a promise that felt both thrilling and terrifying. Just then, the atmosphere shifted, heavy with a weight of anticipation as a figure emerged from the Rowata traveler astride a donkey, draped in tattered garments but bearing an unmistakable aura of grace. The villagers straightened, their eyes focusing on the stranger, who seemed to shimmer against the dawn. The notes of the ethereal song faded, replaced by the soft clopping of hooves on the cobblestones. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, an undertone of curiosity mingled with reverence. Elias stepped forward, sensing the urgency in the air. "Who are you, traveler?" he called out, voice steady yet warm. "Your presence brings a change." With a gentle smile lighting his weathered features, the stranger replied, "I am but a messenger carrying news that will echo through the ages. I come not with wealth or pomp, but with the voice of the heavens. You have gathered here, seeking hope in a time of despair, and hope has arrived. As if igniting a spark in their hearts, the villagers drew closer, straining their ears to capture every word. The child you await, the messenger continued, is born in a humble stable nearby. He is the light in the darkness, the balm for the afflicted. His very first breath has begun to bridge the chasm between man and divine. A thrumming energy pulsed through the assembly, their collective breath held tight as inquisitive gazes locked onto the traveler. Will he heal our land? A voice called out, trembling with both eagerness and doubt. He will heal not just the land, but souls, illuminated the messenger. For within him lies the gift of reconciliation, not only with God but among each other. He comes to challenge the hearts hidden in shadows, with a love fierce enough to quell their storms. The crowd stirred restlessly, each person influenced by the intertwined prospects of awe and fear at such divine magnificence coming to inhabit their realm. The tension of Caleb's earlier words hung thick in the air. Would they be prepared to accept the cost of this miracle? Elias broke the silence that ensued, probing deeper. But how shall we recognize him? We are but simple folk, lost in confusion and burdened by doubts. What signs shall we look for? The messenger's gaze pierced through the anxious hearts gathered before him. Look for vulnerability, for he will dwell among the least of these, the shepherds, the outcasts. In his simplicity, you will discover the multitude of treasures that the world overlooks. He will not come with grandiosity but with an invitation to radical love, asking you to strip away the layers that bind you to fear. As acknowledgement dawned among the villagers, Caleb's heart swelled with fervor. And will we not be called to act, as you said? Do we not have to share this light, painful as it may sometimes feel? The messenger nodded, a solemn understanding passing between them. Indeed. In accepting this child as your savior, you embark upon a journey of love that demands sacrifice. But remember, true peace is not merely the absence of conflict, it is the courageous act of love amidst it. As he spoke, the dawn tightened the embrace of light, illuminating the streets and painting vivid colors in the hearts of the villagers. They hung on his words, recognizing in his message the essence of the struggle that they themselves embodied, the yearning for peace entwined with the fear of what it might demand. With every declaration the stranger made, a part of them stirred defiantly against the familiar shadows. Yet, despite the hope kindling among them, a troubling thought gnawed at Caleb. If this child is indeed the bridge to peace, are we ready to journey into the unknown he signifies? And what sacrifices await those who dare to follow his light? The ache of uncertainty coiled around his spirit, urging him to reflect further on the path set before them. The sun now bathed the world in brilliance, unveiling the ordinary, yet was it truly extraordinary in the making? Would they embrace the challenge to follow this divine message, even as it edged them deeper into the shadows of their personal struggles? As their hearts wrestled with the tensions of faith, the question lingered, what would it take to brave the calling of this messenger and welcome the light, knowing the depths of darkness it might require them to confront? As the last rays of night surrendered to the brilliance of day, a palpable change of air enveloped the villagers. Their hearts danced with newfound intrigue, curiosity mingling with trepidation, and a fervent whisper of hope permeated the collective spirit. The messenger's words struck deep, and his silence now became a precious space filled with possibilities and fears. Elias, ever the guide in the community, felt the weight of listening on him. What do we do now? He posed, turning to the faces around him. The villagers looked to one another, their spirits ignited by inspiration yet held back by uncertainty. With every beat of silence, the questions flourished. As darkness often intertwines with the dawn, Caleb took a hesitant step forward. If we are to seek this light, our hearts must contend with the shadows we harbor. We cannot close our eyes to the truths that disrupt us. Each word echoed with his resolute longing to bridge the gap between faith and doubt. The messenger observed intently, then replied, "The journey toward the light starts by facing the very shadows that terrify you. Acknowledge the weight of your burdens and allow love to transform them. In vulnerability lies not weakness, but the building of a sacred community." As the villagers contemplated this profound insight, the lingering doubt in Caleb's heart transformed into a flicker of clarity. But will we be understood? In our efforts to share this joy, might we not be met with hostility instead? His voice, layered with concern, resonated with many who feared the challenges of growth amidst the skepticism sown into the very fabric of their lives. The messenger paused. A seed must break before it sprouts. The journey toward light entails trials that will forge stronger bonds among you. Let your fears not fester in isolation, but instead bring them forth as offerings of courage and vulnerability. Only then will true transformation emerge. Sensing a flame igniting in his spirit, Caleb envisioned gathering the villagers, blending individual stories into a tapestry of resilience. If we share our burdens, we might just find strength in one another's vulnerability. But what if the very act of reaching out only deepens our pain? The messenger smiled with a knowing warmth. Pain is not the absence of love, sometimes it is the crucible that strengthens it. Your willingness to step into discomfort might create a path for others to follow. Therein lies true grace. Amid the growing luminosity of dawn, the villagers began to nod, slowly absorbing the profound message of sacrifice. Yet, amidst the stirring sense of camaraderie, a cloud of uncertainty hovered. A great question lingered just out of reach: what if we fail in our act of love? What echoes will remain if we misstep on our journey? A weary voice interjected from the back of the crowd, voice trembling with vulnerability and courage alike. The messenger nodded knowingly. But what is failure, if not the teacher of resilience? You will fall, but within those moments of fracture, love abides. Each scar tells a story of courage faced, of light encountered amidst the dark. Will you dare to embrace your scars? In the illumination of those words, the villagers glanced at one another, knowing there was much to ponder yet eager to embrace the journey before them. Would the allure of the child they awaited be enough to dissolve the barriers of individual sorrow? Could their gathered strength break through the masks of isolation that loomed over their hearts? As Caleb spoke again, he felt the warmth of the morning sun on his back, like the whispering embrace of the promise unfulfilled, still whispering significantly of the hope waiting to be birthed. If we are to embark on this path of light and love, we must gather the threads of our lives, choose courage, and fear not the uncertainties ahead. But can we leave behind our fears, unbinding ourselves from what has long kept us shackled? As the villagers began to confer animatedly among one another, the morning air filled with the potential of their collective decision. The child born in the quiet of the stable awaited their acceptance. Would they all find strength and courage to move beyond their darkness and embrace the light? And what unspoken sacrifices were lying in wait along that path they were destined to tread? The villagers stood together, wrapped in a collective reverie, as dawn began to unfurl before them, casting light on the journey they were called to undertake. As the sun rose higher, illuminating the dirt roads and the murmurs of anticipation, hope began to flourish like wildflowers breaking through winter's frost. With each passing moment, the weightiness of their fears began to lift, revealing the fragile beauty of unity and shared dreams. In that sacred circle, the villagers felt a stirring in their hearts, the call to embrace the light of the child, whose unassuming birth bore the weight of salvation. But as they exchanged glances, new, compelling truth emerged. The power of belief often required the comprehensive journey through vulnerability, daring them to dismantle their inner barriers for the sake of something far greater than themselves. Let us not merely speak of this child as an ethereal notion, Elias began, his voice steady and inviting. Let us consider what it means to embody this promise of light in our everyday lives. For if we proclaim him as our Savior, our faith must resonate through our actions, transforming hope into tangible love. Caleb nodded, his heart resonating with the elder's words. We must create a space where questioning is welcomed, hearts are open, and none among us feels solitary in their struggles. In the coming days, let us share our stories of hope and despair, challenging one another to rise up and reflect the light of the child. The villagers felt electrified, pulses quickening and breaths hitching with renewed purpose as the understanding took root that they were about to embark on this transformative journey as a community. Yes. The voices began to join in as if a spell had been cast, encouraging the tender flicker of faith that would light the path ahead. Let this be the dawn of a new beginning, a fire ignited within every heart. They could overcome their fears when anchored in the enigmatic potential of love. Hand in hand, they began to share their hopes and uncertainties, casting aside the masks of shame and doubt while revealing the scars of both triumph and heartache. Each story was a sacred thread, weaving a tapestry of shared experience, of resilience laced with vulnerability. Out of this openness, the villagers dared to dream of the transformations their lives could embody, the light that could envelop their daily encounters. Mothers turned toward their children, encouraging them to express their fears and aspirations publicly. Sons spoke of their failures, while daughters confessed their insecurities, and amidst it all, warm laughter bubbled forth, for shared testimony spurred an awakening. Fragments of silent burdens began to dissolve as their hearts opened wide. Community flourished as stories thrummed with common chords, resonating through the stone streets of the village. They began to understand the child's arrival was not just for them alone but for humanity across the tapestry of existence, a lifeline meant to ignite love in even the darkest of places, and so, as the villagers stirred together, their hearts intertwining in vibrant unity, they coordinated their efforts, a plan emerging that would see them venture forth into their communities as carriers of hope. They would share the message that the child was a refuge and a force not just to believe in but to act upon. They envisioned sharing food with the hungry, kindness with the outcast, and hearts with the lonely, each act a reflection of the light that had entered their world. As they set forth into the village, smiling faces greeted them like sunlight breaking through clouds, and with every encounter, the promise of the child transformed into more than just words spoken, it evolved into a lived reality. The townsfolk, once skeptical, began to warm to their fervor, casting aside their doubt to meet these bearers of light with hearts softened. Days turned into weeks, and the skyline painted a vivid story woven with laughter, courage, and love poured into the veins of their everyday lives. In reconciling their fears, the villagers not only transformed their own hearts but resonated with those around them, invoking a profound ripple effect that expanded beyond their mustard seed of faith. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Caleb found himself standing atop the hill overlooking the village, taking in the echoes of joy beneath the evening sky. In that resonant moment, he reflected on the miracles that had blossomed from their united courage. One child had changed the course of their lives, sparked the compassion within their hearts, and reminded them that every soul, not just the elite, held sacred value in the enduring chain of hope. With every ounce of resolve, the village understood they were not just heralds of a birth, they were witnesses to a promising future unfolding day by day. The truth awakened by that miraculous night burgeoned beyond nights filled with starlight and nights troubled by fear. It began to echo through each person's life, shifting values, forming bonds, and creating an unshakable belief in the potential of love, opening doors once thought barred. And then one evening, under the vast expanse of twinkling stars that once inspired doubt, Caleb gathered the villagers and breathed a deep, rejuvenating sigh. "Tonight, let us remember," he began, with love welling in his chest. "The miracle we witnessed is infused in every sunrise and every act of kindness. Let us make a pact to shine that light into the depths of every heart we encounter, not just during festive seasons but as a daily resonance of our love for one another." As moonlight spilled over the horizon, illuminating their faces with a radiant glow, they shouted in unison, "Together, we will carry this gift. Connected in love, we will not fear, and we will not waver." And it was under that gleaming star, now doused in the promises of hope and courage, that they vowed to give comfort, peace, and love to the world, knowing that every challenge faced would continuously refine their spirits. For they learned that within the calling of a child born in a stable rested the gift of unwavering faith, the driving force sparking transformation amid the mundane. As they descended into the embrace of their beloved village, they took with them the power of that revelation, daring always to believe not just in a child but in the impossible becoming possible through love's winning embrace, where shadows retreated and light would always find its way. And as they gathered, hand in hand, their laughter surged towards the heavens, weaving a tale not only of one miraculous event but of countless moments ignited by faith, a new gospel, echoing back to the stars. So it was that on that fateful eve, illumination dawned, reverberating through eternity, lighting the way for all who dared to follow, not in fear, but in love, an everlasting testament promising that each candle lit was enough to cast out the shadows, revealing the warmth held within.